This is Abe Friedtanzer from Awards Buzz. Very excited to be speaking with Adam Arkin about working behind the scenes on Poker Face. How are you, Adam?
Very good. Good to meet you.
You too. You've done so much work both in front of the camera and behind the camera. Poker Face feels pretty singular. Did working on this remind you of any other projects or experiences that you've had?
No, it was a pretty unique experience. It's a very special show, and the whole concept of it was unlike anything I'd worked on before. First and foremost, the talents involved, give it a special signature. Natasha Lyonne is such a brilliant and kind of unique performer. And the imagination of Brian Johnston, the combination creates a pretty unique environment to work in. And because of the structure of the show, every episode is such a standalone. It's like almost like doing a pilot every couple of weeks. So it was a standalone experience.
I also love the two episodes you did are so radically different just in tone and theme and everything else. And do you shoot in the order that we as audiences see things play out?
No, it was only by chance that the two episodes I directed ended up being ordered right next to each other in terms of their air dates. And those two episodes were actually done months apart, but because of production constraints and availability issues, the shooting order was not the airing order. It just worked out that way.
The actual content, the episodes themselves, we see first we're introduced to the characters and then to Charlie showing up. How do you actually film those? Does it go in the sequential order that, we see it from start to finish? Or is it filmed, in a different way?
No, it's filmed in a way that efficiency wise works for the production. So when you're in a given location in that part of the story that later on reveals that Charlie was actually woven into the storyline, we're doing all of that at the same time, just in different sequences throughout the day. But we don't establish locations and then return to them later. It just, from a production standpoint, wouldn't make sense. Yeah.
Of course, it's nice for us, I think, as audiences to be able to do that, but obviously that's something that if it were to be, it would be highly, highly inefficient, I think, to be able to film that way.
It's sort of it's one of the fun things about working out how you're going to shoot those episodes. When we were in the big box store, there's that the revisiting of the scene with where Charlie's introduced to Sam Richardson's character, and we revisit the customer that Sam Richardson is working with at the very beginning of the show before we've seen Charlie. So we shot that all at the same time, but just obviously cordoned off the two sections of the script during the day.
And were many expensive televisions harmed in the making of the final sequence of that episode?
There were a few, but a lot of that was achieved through special effects. Yeah.
Well, it's also interesting with going back to the Sloppy Joseph episode. One of the reasons that it's compelling is that you believe that this elementary school student is really the villain. What is it
Yeah.
like working with a young actress like that and just shooting this semi-horror type episode?
In this case, it was an absolute joy. Both of those kids, Eva Jade Halford and Callum Vinson, came in uh, with such a specific idea of how they wanted to play these characters, and both of them were extraordinarily professional and skilled, well beyond what would think for their young ages, and it was a lot of fun working with them, and they made the most of it, and I a lot of the time, I just sort of guided what they were already doing, and then stood out of the way because they brought so much to it to begin with. I've actually worked with Callum now twice, right after we had completed the Poker Face season. I got to work with him on another show, and he's just a terrific little actor. Both of them are going to have huge futures, assuming they want to keep doing this.
I asked about the livelihood of the TVs, but I should have asked about the gerbil. But I hope that also had some special effects involved.
No gerbils were harmed during the making of it. In fact, we probably added to the gerbil population just by keeping them all together for the duration of the shoot.
I like that. Well, and you're talking about the, big box episode, and one thing that I think is sort of sad about that episode is it's really this wonderful love story that we know almost right away can't lead anywhere. How do you approach that, just knowing that there's something so sweet and sentimental, but we're well aware that the romantic lead is dead by the time Charlie meets him in our eyes.
Really just staying in the moment. I think when we were shooting the establishing scenes of that relationship, there was an incredible spark between Natasha and Corey Hawkins, who did such a wonderful job in that role. And there again, there was a kind of magic that felt like it was happening between them. And I think the most effective way to make that land as a loss is by just committing to the chemistry that was going on there and letting the audience feel a sense of that disappointment over what could have been between these two people. And I love getting to see a side of Charlie that I think you don't get to see a lot of it. That level of vulnerability and desire to connect with somebody um, was that was one of my favorite things about working on that episode.
It's also a nice sort of ode to movies, both action movies or heist movies and romantic comedies. Do you have
Rom-com.
go to heist movies or romantic comedies that are sort of comfort food for you?
Well, interestingly enough, Heat has been for a long time one of my favorite action and crime films. I still feel a lot of the sequences in that are sort of like the watermark for all action that anybody could hope to achieve. So that's one that I return to quite often. I think between that and No Country for Old Men, uh, those are kind of standout films for me in terms of that kind of action. And then going back to a lot of Friedkin's work, Sorcerer and French Connection, things like that. Yeah.
Well, we still have some of season two playing out, but theoretically there might be more of this show. I assume you'd be interested in returning and to direct, but I'm also curious, given the wealth of roles, even just in these two episodes, beyond the suspect or the villain, who would you want to play in an episode of Poker Face?
Oh, that's interesting. I haven't thought specifically about that. I would relish playing any role that had some, something I could sink my teeth into, and hopefully something a little bit different from my own self. Just that's part of the fun of stepping into a role, I think. But beyond that, I haven't thought specifically about it. I love playing, larger than life or flamboyant characters. So anything like that would be a lot of fun.
I think back a lot to your role on Sons of Anarchy, which I think was definitely very chilling, and I'd like to hope far from your own real life.
Yes, certainly philosophically far from my own real life. Um, yeah, I loved getting to play Zobel, and there was something about his in that environment, especially on that show. There was something about his kind of refinement and a sort of European panache that he had, which was something that Kurt Sutter and I had talked about when I was taking on the role. I asked him if he had intended the character to be from another country because there was something about the way he was written, the way he expressed himself that felt like there was the formality of sort of educated English as a second language. And he was open to that idea, so allowed him to be played with a slight accent, which I thought was great given the fact that he was espousing, diehard American values all the time.
Well, you mentioned you have another project you're working on with Callan. Is there anything that either, directing or acting that you have coming up that you can preview?
There is something coming up, but I've been told that until there are aspects of my deal that are being actually finalized as we speak, and I was told that it would be bad form for me to tip it beyond that. But there's something coming up actually I'm quite excited about in the fall.
Great. Well, in the meantime, what are you watching? What have you seen recently on TV that you really like?
The thing that's made the hugest impression on me lately, and it's not going to be news to anybody because people have been raving about it, was Adolescence. I thought it was just a brilliant achievement on multiple levels. I was deeply affected by that, and my wife and I have also really been enjoying Somebody Somewhere, which is opposite end of the spectrum, but something that we've gotten a lot of pleasure out of watching.
You've given the answer that most people give me and the answer that I give people when they ask me what I recommend. So I appreciate those two
Those
opposite
two
ends of the spectrum.
shows, nice to know. We're on the same page.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Adam. It's such a pleasure. Wishing you plenty of luck with whatever's next.
Thank you. Appreciate the time. Take care.
Take care. Thanks a lot.
Bye bye.